Welcome back to All About English. Today, we're going to talk about something that every person experiences, but something that many people are afraid of: making mistakes.
That's right. Today's topic is why mistakes are your best teacher. And we're not just going to talk about mistakes in English. We're going to talk about mistakes in learning, studying, working, and everyday life.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever made a mistake and immediately thought, "Oh, I wish I could go back and change that"?
Maybe you said something wrong in English. Maybe you forgot something important. Maybe you made a bad decision. Or maybe you tried something new and it didn't work the way you expected.
When we make mistakes, it's easy to feel disappointed. Sometimes we feel embarrassed. Sometimes we think we're not good enough. And sometimes we become afraid to try again.
But what if we looked at mistakes differently? What if a mistake wasn't a sign that you failed, but a sign that you were learning?
That's what we're going to explore today. Because the truth is, you cannot learn something new without making mistakes along the way.
Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You don't get on the bicycle for the first time and immediately know how to balance perfectly. You make mistakes. You lose your balance. You try again. And slowly, you improve.
Learning English is exactly the same. You might use the wrong word. You might make a grammar mistake. You might pronounce a word incorrectly. That's completely normal.
And sometimes, making a mistake can actually help you remember the correct answer much better than simply reading it in a book.
In this episode, we're going to talk about why we're afraid of mistakes, how mistakes help us learn, how to deal with mistakes when learning English, and what we can do after we make one.
We'll also share some simple ideas that can help you become more confident and stop worrying about being perfect.
So, if you've ever been afraid of making a mistake, this conversation is for you.
And if you're learning English, listen carefully because you'll also hear useful vocabulary, natural expressions, and everyday English throughout the conversation.
You don't need to understand every single word. Just relax, listen carefully, and focus on the main ideas.
And remember, making a mistake while learning English is not something you should be ashamed of. It's actually part of the process.
So, let's begin by asking an important question. Why are we so afraid of making mistakes? So, let's start with a simple question. Why are so many people afraid of making mistakes?
I think one of the biggest reasons is that nobody likes feeling embarrassed.
That's true. When we make a mistake, especially in front of other people, we can feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. Imagine you're speaking English in front of a group, and suddenly you use the wrong word. You realize your mistake, and everyone is looking at you.
That can be stressful.
Very stressful. And sometimes the mistake itself isn't the real problem. The real problem is what we think other people are thinking about us.
We might think, they're going to think my English is terrible.
Or they're going to laugh at me.
Or even, maybe I'm just not good at English.
And that's where the problem begins. One small mistake can make us create a much bigger story in our minds.
That's a really good point. We make one mistake, but then we start judging ourselves.
Yes. Instead of thinking, I made a mistake, we think, I am bad at this.
And those two ideas are completely different.
Exactly. Making a mistake is something you do. It doesn't define who you are.
I like that. A mistake is an event, not an identity.
Right. If you make one grammar mistake, that doesn't mean you're bad at English. It simply means that you made one grammar mistake.
And you can learn from it.
Yes, but many people forget that because they're focused on looking perfect. Why do you think people care so much about being perfect? I think we're often taught, directly or indirectly, that being wrong is bad. At school, for example, you get a question wrong and you see the incorrect answer.
Right.
So you start connecting mistakes with failure.
That's interesting. We learn to think that the correct answer is good and the wrong answer is bad.
Exactly. But when you're learning something new, Wrong answers can actually be useful.
Because they show you what you need to learn.
Yes. Imagine you're learning a new English verb. You use it incorrectly, someone corrects you, and then you understand the correct form.
You might actually remember that correction for a long time.
That's what happens to me. If I make a mistake and someone explains it to me, I usually remember the correct version much better.
So the mistake becomes part of the learning process.
Exactly. Another reason people are afraid of mistakes is comparison. We look at someone who speaks English very well and think, I'll never be like that.
Yes, and we forget that we are comparing our beginning to someone else's progress. That's a powerful idea.
Think about it. You might listen to someone speaking English fluently and think they never make mistakes.
But that's probably not true.
Not at all. Even advanced speakers make mistakes. They might forget a word, pronounce something incorrectly, or make a grammar mistake.
The difference is that they're usually not afraid to continue speaking.
Exactly. They don't stop every time they make a small mistake.
That's something English learners can learn from.
Definitely. If you stop every time you make a mistake, you never get enough practice.
And without practice, it's very difficult to improve.
That's the problem. Fear creates a cycle.
What do you mean by that?
You're afraid of making a mistake, so you don't speak. Because you don't speak, you don't practice. Because you don't practice, you don't improve. And because you don't improve, you become even more afraid of speaking.
That's a difficult cycle.
It is. But the good news is that you can break it
How?
by accepting that mistakes are going to happen.
So instead of saying, I must not make any mistakes, you say, I am going to make mistakes. And that's okay.
Exactly.
That sounds simple, but I think it's difficult for many people.
It is difficult because we want to feel confident before we start.
But maybe confidence comes after we start.
I completely agree. You don't always need confidence to begin. Sometimes you need to begin before you feel confident.
That's an important lesson.
Think about learning to drive, learning to cook, learning a new sport, or learning a language. At the beginning, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
You're gonna make mistakes.
Yes, and that's normal.
So maybe we should stop asking, how can I avoid mistakes?
And start asking, what can I learn from this mistake?
I really like that question.
It's a much more useful question.
Let's give our listeners a simple example. Imagine someone is learning English and says, yesterday I go to the store.
The correct sentence is, yesterday I went to the store.
Now, if that learner feels embarrassed and stops speaking, what happens?
They lose an opportunity to practice.
But if they listen to the correction and say, oh, I went to the store, what happens?
Now they've learned something. The mistake helped them understand the past tense.
And next time, they might remember it automatically.
Exactly.
So the mistake wasn't the end of the conversation.
It was actually part of the lesson.
That's the mindset we want our listeners to remember.
Don't see every mistake as a failure. See it as information.
Information?
Yes, a mistake tells you something. It tells you what you don't know yet or what you need to practice.
That's a great way to think about it.
And once you know what you need to improve, you have a direction.
So instead of feeling lost, you have something specific to work on.
Exactly.
There's another thing I want to mention. Perfectionism.
Yes, perfectionism can make learning much harder.
How?
If you believe that everything has to be perfect before you show it to someone, you may spend too much time worrying and not enough time practicing.
So perfectionism can actually slow you down?
Definitely. Sometimes doing something imperfectly is better than waiting forever to do it perfectly.
That's true for language learning too.
Absolutely. If you wait until your English is perfect before speaking, you may never start.
and your English becomes better by using it.
Exactly.
So, if you're learning English right now and you're afraid of making mistakes, what would you say to yourself?
I'd say, it's okay. I'm learning. I don't need to be perfect.
And what else?
Every mistake gives me a chance to improve.
That's a great sentence. Let's say it again for our listeners.
Every mistake gives me a chance to improve.
And one more time.
Every mistake gives me a chance to improve.
Excellent. So, we've learned that fear of mistakes often comes from embarrassment, comparison, perfectionism, and the belief that being wrong means we're not good enough.
But being wrong doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're still learning.
And learning takes time.
Exactly.
So, don't let the fear of making a mistake stop you from trying.
Because if you never make mistakes, you may not be challenging yourself enough.
That's a great point.
Growth usually happens when we try something that is a little difficult.
And sometimes we make mistakes along the way.
That's completely normal.
In the next part, we're going to look at something even more interesting: how mistakes can actually help your brain learn and remember information better.
So stay with us, because your next mistake might actually be one of your best lessons.
In the first part, we talked about why people are afraid of making mistakes. Now let's look at the other side of the story. Can mistakes actually help us learn?
Absolutely. In fact, mistakes can be one of the most useful parts of the learning process.
That might sound strange. Usually when people hear the word mistake, they think about something negative.
That's true. But a mistake can give you information that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
What kind of information?
It can show you exactly what you don't understand yet.
So a mistake can point to a weakness.
Yes, and that's actually helpful. If you know what your weakness is, you know what you need to practice.
Let's use an English example.
Sure.
Imagine you're learning English and you say, "She go to school every day."
Someone might correct you and say, she goes to school every day.
Now you know that with she, you need goes, not go.
Exactly. Before the correction, you might not have known that.
So the mistake showed you something you needed to learn.
And the correction gave you the information you needed.
This is why feedback is so important.
Yes, feedback helps us understand what we're doing well and what we need to change.
But sometimes people don't like receiving corrections.
That's true. They might feel that the correction is criticism.
And that can make them uncomfortable.
But correction doesn't have to mean criticism. It can simply mean, here's another way to do this.
That's an important difference.
Definitely. If someone corrects your English, try to think, great, now I know how to say it correctly.
Instead of thinking, oh no, I made a mistake.
Exactly.
There's another interesting thing about mistakes. Sometimes we remember something better after making a mistake.
I agree. Have you ever learned a word and forgotten it, but then used it incorrectly and someone corrected you?
Yes,
Did you remember the correction?
usually yes.
That's because the mistake created a stronger learning experience.
So the situation became more memorable.
Exactly. You didn't just read the correct answer. You experienced the mistake, received the correction, and understood the difference.
Let's imagine someone learns the word comfortable.
Okay.
They pronounce it incorrectly at first.
Then someone shows them the correct pronunciation.
And suddenly, they pay much more attention to that word.
Right. They might remember the correct pronunciation because they don't want to repeat the same mistake.
So the mistake becomes part of their memory.
Exactly.
This happens outside language learning too.
Of course. Think about learning to cook.
You might add too much salt to a dish.
And after tasting it, you realize that's way too salty.
You probably won't forget that lesson quickly.
Definitely not.
The next time you cook the same dish, you'll probably use less salt.
Exactly.
The mistake taught you something through experience.
And experience can be a very powerful teacher.
Yes, sometimes experience teaches us things that books cannot.
That's a great point.
A book can tell you, don't do this, but when you experience the result yourself, the lesson can feel much more real.
So mistakes can turn information into experience.
Exactly.
What about mistakes when studying?
They're extremely useful there too. Imagine you're studying for an exam and you answer a question incorrectly.
At first, you might feel disappointed.
But if you check the answer and understand why you were wrong, you've just learned something new.
And if you see a similar question on the real exam, you may remember the correct answer.
That's right.
So getting a practice question wrong can actually help you prepare for the real test.
Exactly. That's why practice tests are so useful.
Because they show you where you need more practice.
Yes, a practice test isn't only about getting a high score. It's also about discovering what you don't know yet.
I like that idea. Sometimes we focus too much on the score.
We do, but the score is only one piece of information.
The mistakes are information too.
And sometimes they're the most useful information.
Let's talk about another important skill, problem solving.
Good idea.
Can mistakes help us become better at solving problems?
Definitely. When something doesn't work, you have to think about why it didn't work.
And then you try a different approach?
Exactly. You test an idea, you see the result, and then you adjust your approach.
So you're learning through trial and error.
Yes, trial and error is a useful expression. It means trying different methods until you find one that works.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine you're trying to organize your study time. You create a schedule, but after a week, you realize it's too difficult to follow.
So the schedule didn't work.
Right. Instead of giving up, you ask yourself why it didn't work.
Maybe there were too many tasks.
Exactly. Maybe you gave yourself unrealistic goals.
Then you change the schedule.
And you try again.
That's trial and error.
Yes, you learn from the first attempt and make the second attempt better.
This is something people do all the time without realizing it.
Absolutely. Learning is often a process of trying, making mistakes, adjusting, and trying again.
So when something doesn't work the first time, it doesn't necessarily mean you failed.
Right. It might simply mean that you've discovered one way that doesn't work.
That's a very different way of thinking.
It is. Instead of saying, I failed, you can say, that approach didn't work. What can I try next?
That sounds much more positive.
And it's also more useful.
Because now you're focused on the solution.
Exactly.
Let's bring this back to English learning.
Okay.
Suppose you try to speak English for 5 minutes every day, but you make many mistakes.
That's normal.
Maybe you forget vocabulary. Maybe your grammar isn't perfect. Maybe you have trouble pronouncing certain words.
That's part of learning.
But after a few weeks, you notice that some of those mistakes are happening less often,
That's progress.
even though you are still making mistakes.
Exactly. Progress doesn't mean that you stop making mistakes completely.
Then what does progress mean?
Progress means that you're making fewer mistakes, correcting them more quickly, understanding them better, or becoming more confident when you make them.
I really like that definition.
Think about it this way. If you made the same mistake 10 times last month and only made it twice this month, that's progress.
Even if you still made the mistake twice.
Exactly.
Sometimes learners expect improvement to look perfect.
But real improvement is usually gradual.
Small changes over time.
Yes, one new word, one better pronunciation, one grammar correction, one more conversation.
And all those small improvements add up.
Exactly.
There's something else I want to ask. Should we try to avoid making the same mistake twice?
Ideally, yes. But repeating a mistake doesn't mean you're not learning.
Why not?
because some things take time to become automatic.
Can you explain that?
Sure, you might understand a grammar rule when someone explains it, but when you're speaking quickly, you might forget it.
So you understand the rule, but you haven't developed the habit yet.
Exactly. You need more practice before the correct form becomes natural.
That's especially true when learning a language.
Definitely. You can know a grammar rule and still make mistakes when speaking.
And that's okay.
Yes, understanding comes first, and automatic use often comes later.
So if you make the same mistake again, don't immediately think, I'm not learning.
Instead, think, I need more practice,
That's much healthier.
and much more realistic.
So let's summarize this part.
Mistakes show us what we need to learn.
Corrections give us useful information.
Experience makes lessons more memorable.
Trial and error helps us solve problems.
And repeated practice helps correct behavior become automatic.
So mistakes aren't simply obstacles.
They're tools.
Tools for learning.
Exactly.
And maybe that's why mistakes can be some of our best teachers.
Because they don't just tell us that something is wrong, they give us an opportunity to understand how to make it better.
That's a great way to look at mistakes.
And the next time you make one, try not to hide from it.
Stop,
Look at it.
understand it,
Learn from it.
and try again.
Exactly.
In the next part, we're going to focus specifically on mistakes in English learning and why making mistakes while speaking can actually help you become a more confident English speaker.
So if you're learning English, don't go anywhere. The next part is especially for you.
We've talked about how mistakes can help us learn. Now let's talk about something very important for our listeners: mistakes when learning English.
This is probably one of the biggest challenges for English learners.
Especially when speaking.
Yes. Many people understand English quite well when they read or listen, but when they have to speak, they suddenly become nervous.
Why does that happen?
Because speaking is immediate. When you're reading, you have time to think. When you're listening, you can simply listen. But when you're speaking, you have to choose your words, build a sentence, pronounce the words, and communicate your idea at the same time.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. And if you're also thinking, I must not make a mistake, it becomes even harder.
So the fear of mistakes can actually make speaking more difficult?
Exactly.
Let's imagine an English learner who wants to say, I went to the store yesterday,
Okay.
but they're not sure about the past tense of go.
They might stop and think for 10 seconds.
And by the time they find the answer, the conversation has already moved on.
That's a common problem.
What should they do instead?
They should try, even if they're not completely sure.
So they might say, yesterday I go to the store.
Right. Then someone can correct them. Yesterday, I went to the store.
And now they have learned something.
Exactly. The important thing is that they communicated their idea and learned from the correction.
What if they make another mistake?
They keep going.
What if they make 5 mistakes?
They keep going.
10 mistakes?
They keep going.
I think that's difficult for many learners.
It is, but it's one of the most important habits you can develop.
Don't stop every time you make a mistake.
Exactly. If you stop every few seconds to correct yourself, speaking becomes exhausting.
So, should we never correct ourselves?
No, corrections are important, but you don't have to correct every single mistake immediately.
What's a better approach?
Finish your idea first. Communicate your message. Then, if you have time, think about what you could improve.
That makes sense.
Imagine you're having a conversation about your weekend.
Okay.
You say, yesterday I go to the park and I see my friend.
A more natural version would be, yesterday I went to the park and I saw my friend.
Exactly. But even before the correction, your listener understood your meaning.
And that's the main purpose of language: communication.
Exactly. Another common mistake is worrying too much about vocabulary.
Yes, learners sometimes think they need to know every word before they can have a conversation. But that's impossible.
It is. Even native speakers don't know every word.
So, what can you do if you don't know a word?
You can describe it.
Give us an example.
Imagine you don't know the word umbrella.
Okay,
You could say, the thing you use when it's raining.
that's a great strategy.
The other person will probably understand and give you the word.
Umbrella.
Exactly. And now you've learned a new word.
So, not knowing a word doesn't have to end the conversation.
Right, you can explain it in another way.
That's an important communication skill.
Yes, sometimes we call this working around a word.
Instead of stopping completely.
Exactly.
Another common mistake is pronunciation.
Definitely. Pronunciation can be difficult because English spelling isn't always simple.
That's true.
You might see a word and pronounce it the way it looks, but English doesn't always work that way.
So, making pronunciation mistakes is normal.
Very normal.
What should learners do when someone corrects their pronunciation?
Listen carefully, repeat the word, and practice it again later.
And don't feel embarrassed.
Exactly. The correction is helping you.
Let's say someone pronounces a word incorrectly, and another person says, actually, it's pronounced this way.
The learner can simply say, "Oh, thank you," and repeat it.
That's a good attitude.
Yes, you don't have to apologize for learning.
I really like that sentence. You don't have to apologize for learning.
Because you're learning something new. Mistakes are expected.
Another challenge is grammar.
Grammar is probably one of the areas where learners make the most mistakes.
Tenses, articles, prepositions, word order.
Exactly. There are many small details.
And sometimes learners try to remember every grammar rule while speaking.
That's a big problem.
Why?
Because it can make you speak very slowly and feel nervous.
So, should we ignore grammar?
Not at all. Grammar is important, but you shouldn't let grammar stop you from communicating.
So, learn grammar, practice it, and then use it naturally.
Exactly.
And mistakes will happen while you're practicing.
Of course.
Let's talk about translating in your head.
That's another common challenge.
A learner thinks of a sentence in their first language, translates it into English, checks the grammar, and then finally speaks.
And by then, the conversation may have moved to another topic.
Exactly.
Translation can be useful when you're learning new vocabulary, but you shouldn't depend on it for every sentence.
How can learners reduce this habit?
Start with simple English thoughts.
For example,
Instead of thinking in your first language, look at your surroundings and think, the door is open. The room is quiet. I need water. I'm going to study.
simple sentences.
Exactly. You don't need complicated English to practice thinking in English.
And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Yes.
There's also another mistake learners make. They compare themselves to fluent speakers.
That's very common.
They hear someone speaking quickly and think, I'll never speak like that.
But they don't see the years of practice behind that person's ability.
Right.
It's better to compare yourself with your past self.
What do you mean?
Ask yourself, can I understand more English than I could 6 months ago? Can I speak more comfortably? Do I know more vocabulary?
Those are better questions.
Much better.
Because improvement is personal.
Exactly. Your goal isn't to become someone else. Your goal is to become better than you were before.
Let's talk about a learner who is afraid to speak because they think their accent isn't perfect.
That's very common too.
What would you tell them?
I'd say focus on being clear rather than trying to sound exactly like someone else.
So, having an accent is not automatically a problem?
Not at all. People from different countries have different accents.
The important thing is that people can understand you.
Exactly.
And pronunciation can improve with practice.
Yes. You can listen, repeat, record yourself, and practice difficult sounds.
Recording yourself can feel strange at first.
Very strange.
But it can be useful.
Definitely. When you listen to your own recording, you may notice things you didn't notice while speaking.
And then you can improve them.
Exactly.
So let's imagine someone says, I'm too embarrassed to speak English because I make mistakes.
I'd tell them, your mistakes are not evidence that you should stop. They're evidence that you're practicing.
That's powerful.
Think about someone learning a new skill. If they never make mistakes, maybe they're not challenging themselves enough.
So mistakes can actually be a sign of effort.
Yes.
What should an English learner do after making a mistake?
First, stay calm.
Good.
Second, listen to the correction if someone gives you one.
Okay.
Third, repeat the correct version.
And then?
Try to use it again later.
So let's practice with a simple example.
Sure.
Yesterday, I go to the library.
Yesterday, I went to the library.
Again? Yesterday, I went to the library.
Yesterday, I went to the library.
Great. The mistake helped us practice the correct sentence.
Exactly.
And that's what learning English should be. Practice, correction, and another attempt.
Yes, don't expect yourself to get everything right immediately.
Give yourself permission to learn slowly.
And give yourself permission to make mistakes.
Because the goal isn't perfect English.
The goal is better English.
And better English comes from practice.
And practice includes mistakes.
So if you're listening to this right now and you've been afraid to speak English, I want you to remember one thing.
Don't wait until your English is perfect.
Start with the English you have.
Use it.
Make mistakes.
Learn from them.
And keep going.
Every conversation is practice.
Every correction is a lesson.
And every mistake can help you improve.
We've talked a lot about why mistakes happen and how they can help us learn. So, what should we actually do when we make a mistake?
I think there are 4 simple steps. First, accept the mistake. Don't waste your energy feeling embarrassed.
Second, understand what went wrong.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what did I do incorrectly and why?
Third, correct the mistake.
Learn the correct answer, phrase, pronunciation, or method.
And finally, try again.
That's the most important part. Don't let one mistake stop you from trying again.
So, if you make a mistake while speaking English, don't immediately stop the conversation.
Keep communicating. Listen to the correction, repeat the correct version, and use it again later.
And remember, you don't need perfect English to communicate.
Exactly. Your goal is progress, not perfection.
Let's quickly review what we've learned today.
Mistakes are normal. Everyone makes them.
Mistakes show us what we need to improve.
Corrections help us learn the right way.
Practice helps us become more confident.
And trying again turns mistakes into progress.
So the next time you make a mistake, don't say, I'm terrible at this.
Instead, say, what can I learn from this?
That's the mindset that can change the way you learn.
And especially when you're learning English, don't be afraid to speak just because you might make a mistake.
Speak, practice, make mistakes.
Learn from them and keep going.
Because your mistakes aren't proof that you're failing.
They're proof that you're trying.
And sometimes your biggest mistake can become your best lesson.
That's a great place to end today's episode.
Thank you so much for listening to All About English.
We hope this conversation helped you feel more comfortable with making mistakes and practicing English.
If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more English listening practice.
And remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep learning.
Keep practicing.
Keep improving.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
See you in the next episode.